Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Brad from the Ad Army, and today we are going to be going over Appmon today as we look at BT21 World Convergence. As when we receive the set in April, it will be the first universal release, but Appmon are going to be probably the thing that's kind of taking a lot of people's attention, as Appmon does debut finally in the TCG or the card game in general. As the cousins of Digimon, they will be arriving. But before I get into it, I just wanted to let you guys know that this is an informal video on Appmon. I do know that the release of the Gatchmon card has already taken place, so it did kind of change how this video was going to be. I actually had it in works for a couple of weeks, and I decided to rework it because of Gatchmon finally being revealed. So we do know a lot of things. I'm still going to go over the basics of how Appmon function as just a general thing, not just because of the card game, and then we'll talk about how they come to the card game and kind of how they can work. So getting into it, as always, let's start off with Appmon and how they work. So unlike levels or kind of like the stages we see in Digimon with like Champion Ultimate, we have grades in the form of the Appmon. So the Appmon actually have 4 grades that we know of currently, that being standard grade, which is basically a rookie equivalency. You have your super grade, which could be champion equivalency if you want. Ultimate grade is technically possibly ultimate or mega, because we do have a comparison from the anime that I'll talk about in a second. And finally, the god grade is the highest level. That would probably be something like level 7s to 6s in that range, because they're supposed to be purportedly on that level, so that's really cool. But like I was talking about, the anime appearance of War Greymon in the Appmon anime does have us some comparative level, because we did see Globemon appear next to it. Size is one thing, but power was never something we got to see fully, so we don't know exactly if the level 6 War Greymon or Mega War Greymon is on par with Globemon, or Globemon's on par with it. We're just making those assumptions, so I just wanted to clear the air with that first, because some people might assume that. I'm not exactly sure because it's never been confirmed, but we will have a equivalency in card game terms, so I did want to put that out there. Moving into exactly how Appmon function. Now, Appmon are interesting because they actually have something called Applink, which Applink is their form of evolution and or augmentation, and it's actually very similar to Digicross. Now, the main reason I say it's very similar to Digicross is that unlike something like DNA, which a lot of people say Applink is, it's not really DNA, because the Digimon, or the Appmon, sorry, won't necessarily change or evolve. It morely gets augmentation, like more power from the usage of the other Appmon it links to. But for those wondering, Applink is when 2 Appmon using their little linking cables on the back of their bodies connect together to kind of merge. So this usually results in one being the base and the other one being a part of that link combination, so like an energy merge. Or you'll see later on we have Applink fusion, but more importantly, Applink evolution results in augmentations and or slash forms. Technically, maybe they possess weapons or abilities of the Appmon, but they don't actually evolve. They just remain the same and use the abilities of the Appmon that they've used their link with. And there's no grade change, so they don't technically like level up, if that's what people would equivalate to. But looking into App Fusion, which is the next step, App Fusion is very similar to like DNA, but it's also very similar to standard evolution, where when 2 Appmon that have a very high compatibility and power output reach each other and do an app link, they actually perform an app fusion, which allows them to merge together to form a brand new Appmon. But the key thing is, once this has been done the first time, an Appmon actually does not need its partner to continuously produce the Appmon evolution. It's almost as if the data is stored in the chip that we will see with the buddies or tamers, where they actually contain that energy, and then once that base Appmon is able to revert back, it can use the Appmon chip to go into that form again without the need of necessarily having its partner Appmon with it. But in order to achieve the app evolution, which does result in a grade change, the main thing you have to understand is that it has to have one form first before they can do that. So a grade evo occurs, and that is the aspect of that. Now I'm going to round out the last features that we know of Appmon in order to kind of understand them, so before I get into how we can convert them into the game. So starting off, they don't have any eggs that we know of. We've never seen actual Digitama, but the key thing is we do know Appmon come from Appmon chips, so maybe the level eggs and the Appmon chips will be maybe equivalents of each other. More importantly, we only technically know that there's 4 grades compared to the levels of Digimon, so it really will depend on how Bandai really wants to kind of make the levels modulate to how the grades function, or maybe they don't matter at all. Maybe they have levels. It's going to really be up to them. Additionally, Applink / Fusion could have multiple adaptations. I do think, since we haven't seen anything besides Gatchmon so far, there is no guarantee that they'll adapt it the same way. Maybe there's an anime kind of focus of how they can do it, because Applinking and Fusion kind of are similar to a lot of mechanics we have, but they also have their own properties, so it is kind of an up to Bandai at that point. And then more importantly, tamers, or buddies as they're known in the Appmon anime, but more importantly, they're going to be tamers probably. They could aid in the utilization of the evil mechanics. Pretty much in the Appmon anime, for those who have not watched, you do need your the buddies, or the main protagonist, to kind of use their powers to make their Appmon evolve further. Like, it's a back and forth streak, but an Appmon needs a chip from the user to actually do it. So that is important to understand. But now let's get into it, as we are going to be converting the Appmon. As we do know that thanks to the episode we received, Agumon made its way into the Appmon universe and actually did participate in an episode with Gatchmon, so they fought side by side. But the point is, we didn't really get a full equivalency, more or less just reminding us that Digimon exists and Appmon is a part of the Digimon universe. But the point is, here, we understand that for the card game, we're going to have to make some caveats. So the first thing that I want to talk about that I alluded to before is that there are no eggs for Appmon. So what will we do instead? Obviously, there is the Appmon chip, which in my opinion is probably the easiest way to solve this dilemma. Just have the Appmon chip be equivalent to a Digi-Egg and pretty much, or Digitama, and just simply have a Appmon chip card in the battle area. This is going to be something I'll talk about when we get to Gatchmon, but the point is, this would probably be the easiest way to just rectify it. It would consider itself an egg, so pretty much you'd be able to use it that way. Additionally, we have the obvious notion of Gatchmon being treated as a level 3 because we saw the release of the art card. So we know Gatchmon will be treated as a rookie. So clearly this means that the level ranking was probably going to be about the same as we would do with normal Digimon. It's just that Appmon will have their own special functions, as we'll talk about in a second. Additionally, we didn't see it, but I'm assuming what might happen is we may receive forms, like upgraded forms for the Appmon, in terms of kind of like what we see with the Shoutmon forms, a lot of them, but we may not see it. And simply with the mechanic of Link, I will explain in a bit maybe how they'll adapt that, but we're also going to see level 3s kind of adapting the ability to have augmentations thanks to the other Appmon maybe using the Link mechanic. Additionally, I think a comparison like this is probably going to be what we'll see with the standard grades all equivalent to like level 3s. Additionally, the super grades will be level 4s. Ultimate grades are going to be level 5 or 6, and then maybe God grade will be 6 and 7. It really will depend on what they want to do, but we're pretty much going to see something along these lines, and we're pretty sure that this is going to be what it's going to look like. It's just mostly thanks to the artwork release. Additionally, we have buddies and tamers. The key thing we have here is that we don't know exactly how they're going to function yet, but we do know that the actual archetypes will be utilizing their specific tamers or buddies, so we do know this is going to be a thing. It's just we're not exactly sure how it will be implemented yet, so do understand. Moving into the possible playstyles, I've actually thought about this a lot because I was thinking about this even before the release of specifically Gatchmon, and since we have Gatchmon, it's pretty clear now that how the decks will function to a degree, or in terms of we see like a semi playstyle of what we can expect. But I do think that there's a lot we could still talk about when we bring it together. So talking about Gatchmon really quickly, we do know that first, Gatchmon carries a generic evolution ability, so it will be able to digivolve on top of any red level 2. So that is interesting because that basically means they can function in any deck technically with a red bottom end. Cool. Additionally, they have a special evolution condition, Gatchmon, for a level 2 with Appmon or the hero trait for a cost of 0. So that already tells us we have a subtyping already going to be added in probably hero, which kind of makes sense for how Appmon functions, because the actual protagonist in Haru is trying to be a protagonist. Like, no joke, he's supposed to be trying to be a hero, so this basically means that that's being adapted into the game, so that's really cool. Additionally, we see his your turn effect for Gatchmon being that when this Digimon gets linked, if you have one or fewer tamers, you get to play out a Haru Shinkai from your hand. So this does mean that the Appmon linking ability will be usable from either hand or field or the trash. We don't know exactly yet, but I'm assuming there's going to be some type of caveat in order to proc effects like this on Gatchmon, which also means that many of the other Appmon will be functioning along those lines. Additionally, we learn about the link mechanic, which is here where it says an Appmon trait link 1, where you can place this card sideways under one of your Appmon, in the battle area. So interestingly, it becomes like an evolution source, I guess is my best way to explain it to people. But yes, we do know that linking is here. We even have this little side black text bar, which is like a 2000 DP, which kind of points for specifically Gatchmon. So this may be some type of adaptation to kind of like refer to the chips and how they function in the game or in the anime. So like basically putting them together. So I think the point of linking is maybe to separate them from Digimon, where you have Evo sources instead. Since Appmon kind of don't work in the same function, a link material is probably going to be attached sideways to differentiate stuff from Evo sources. So depending on how this is treated, because there is an inheritable here for Gatchmon, which is raid. The interesting aspect I'm wondering here is that will this be treated as an Evo source all the time? But if it's sideways, is it not treated as an evolution source? We'll have to wait till we get more confirmation. But the point is, this is how Gatchmon is designed so far, and this is the start of the Appmon cards. So moving into the possible play styles, I have my first one here, which is going to be the save style similarity. Now, interestingly, I think this would actually work really well as an adaptation for it. Now, the main reason why is you would use tamers very similarly to the Crossheart deck or Blue Flare, any of the types of strategies where you utilize your tamers by suspending them to simulate either Applink or App Fusion. So it'll allow you with the tamers, I'm assuming maybe Haru lets you load Appmon into tamers and you gain memory or effects that way in order to basically maybe buff up your Appmon or slide them into the sources, like maybe like how it works for Digicrossing with Taiki. You would go ahead and perform maybe an App Fusion or Link, and then instead you can suspend Haru or the others. I don't know, my mind's blanking on them because I remembered them, but yeah, basically you'll be able to suspend your Appmon tamer in order to load the sources underneath them. So I think that's probably what's going to happen. Or additionally, you have things like being able to suspend tamers to add Appmon from trash in order to use maybe the link mechanic that way. I think that's also a cool way. Or maybe it's a way where, like, if you link, you can suspend a tamer, and then you can not pay you gain a memory or 2 memory or something like that to keep your turn, to allow you to keep going up. I could see something like that happening, but we'll have to wait. But I think a save style similarity would be cool. Like maybe you have Globemon or Gatchmon, and then they attack and they get deleted. You load them into Haru so you can use them again. So maybe it simulates how you're able to function with the Appmon mechanic, where like the chips, once they're in play, you keep the pieces underneath and then you just play them back out. That's always a play style. Additionally, I have the possibility of a brand new style. I mean, it doesn't really, I would say it doesn't really matter in terms of the aspect of a new way, because it's not really going to break the game. It's just more of a new style of how maybe they're not going to go off of older existing strategies to try to make the cards work. Maybe it's a brand new thing. So the main thing I'm obviously seeing with Gatchmon is that all Appmon will probably be able to link to one another, which was something in the anime. Basically, if you wanted to use a different Appmon, you would just simply grab it and use it to connect to the other one. So I think linking is going to be the way that all Appmon link to one another. It would be an interesting way to also put it together with decks going forward, because that's a mechanic that doesn't exist in Digimon in the TCG. So I think that'd be really cool to just allow every Appmon the ability to just work together. However, this probably means that there's going to be caveats with, like, different colors and archetypes. Additionally, we don't know if they will also have eggs or not. I wanted to make this clear, as in, if we don't get eggs, and maybe something that it allows Gatchmon to evolve on Digi Eggs, or all the other Appmon that are level 3s can Digivolve on top of Digi Eggs, but Digimon can't Digivolve on top of whatever they give to the Appmon. So we'll have to wait for that. But also, I do think maybe there's a possibility of reduced Evos when Appmon have specifically linked Digimon, or Appmon, sorry. But the point of this would be that they'll probably have specific Evos for something like maybe Globemon, for instance. It needs specifically Gatchmon, which is like the champion technically of Gatchmon, but it would say that you need to have it in the sources to reduce its Evo. Maybe it's a special Evo cost to be like, oh, if it's linked in the sources, or if it's the main body and maybe it needs like Navimon and Gatchmon, which are the 2 sources for Gatchmon in their sources, maybe that there's some type of special Evo that says if you have it, you can Digivolve it for 1 or 2, something like that. Additionally, you can have possible Digicross style play for the higher level grade App Fusions. I think like something like this would make sense for Globemon, because we do see Globemon in the artwork of BT21, so we know we will be getting Globemon. I think Globemon might have a way to where you can play Globemon from your hand, but you have to link the materials or have them ready. So it's like, oh, if you want to play the actual Globemon from your hand, you'll have to have Navimon, Gatchmon, DOGETIMON in your hand, and you could play it out and they reduce the cost, maybe something similar to that. And then even something like Gaiamon, which is the god form of Globemon, it needs to have all the sources to reduce its play cost. However, you could digivolve into it, but it's a high cost of Evo. So there are ways to navigate it that way. And then finally, the last card I want to talk about isn't even a card yet, but there's a possibility this could also be untrue. But thanks to Digimon Liberator, we have seen Maquinamon, which is arguably weirdly designed to have a linking tail, and it looks oddly partially like a Appmon. So there is a possibility that this might not actually be an Appmon, but what I think it might function as a generic support card to assist the Appmon when they arrive. Think of something like the Bokomon that was released in BT7 to assist hybrids, and stuff like Ukomon that is designed to assist other decks. The point is, Maquinamon might actually appear as a support to Appmon and not really be an Appmon at all, but be a Digimon that's designed to help out Appmon-based strategies. Now, I do think that what it might be able to do is like a generic link, or it could maybe Digimon to add, Appmon, like maybe you just hard play it and it aids you by getting them to your hand. But I think another thing is very similar to Bokomon, is just hard play the thing. It'll look for the top 4 or 5, and then you're going to grab maybe a tamer that it lists like Appmon, or specifically a Appmon itself. Like you're going to be at 1 and 1. And then finally, it's like you can just link it to any Appmon offering a powerful inherit or ability. So I think something like this could be on the field. This card can link underneath any of your Appmon and treat itself as a specific Appmon requirement. Something like Shoutmon, a King version, is a good example of what I think this effect could be, where you just simply use its effect to let it be any specific requirement you need for an app fusion if they're deciding to do that. So maybe it's like you don't have DOGETIMON, but you have this, you can use this for DOGETIMON, and then next thing you know, Globemon is online. Stuff like that, because I really think that with Maquinamon, if Maquinamon isn't actually going to be a Digimon to support Appmon, its design is really awkward because it has a linking cable and everything. So I think that would be a cool way to maybe bridge Digimon decks and Appmon together. So they could do it that way. But pretty much that's all I've got for you guys today. This video has been a pretty interesting one to make because I had gone through like 3 versions of making it, and I finally got to the one that I wanted to here with all the things I wanted to talk about. Pretty much just showing you guys maybe this is how we're going to get Appmon released to us, because April will be here sooner than later. We're almost already through January by the time this comes out. So I did want to make this in order to get people ready, because once April hits, we're in a new world in terms of everybody being able to access all the cards. So I did want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to understand that Appmon may change the face of the game, but it could be a blunder because, maybe the mechanic doesn't fit. But I did want to get everybody ready because we are going to be on the run towards BT21 in a matter of weeks. Once we get, we get BT 2.5 at the end of February. So literally it'll almost be like a month, basically, or a month and a half till we get into BT 21. So by the time this comes out, we'll already be close to February. So just putting it out there, it's going to be quick. But as always, this has been Brad from the Ad Army signing off. And for all of you out there, to sign on.